Thanks, Paul. Before I announce the recipient of the first ever CityLax Ed McGuinn Humanitarian Award, I'd like to tell everyone a little bit more about Ed McGuinn. While raising his family in Fairfield County and starting and launching a career in finance on Wall Street, Ed McGuinn was a major force in youth lacrosse in Fairfield County in Connecticut. If he wasn't coaching a team or organizing a team, he was refereeing games. And yet somehow still Ed found time on his plate with his busy schedule to become an integral force behind CityLax. Joining with Matt Levine and John Moser, Ed McGuinn rallied the troops so that this organization could go from 1 or 2 schools in the Bronx to now more than 70 public school lacrosse programs across the 5 boroughs of New York City. And there is no arguing that CityLax would not be where it is today without the help of the driving force of Ed McGuinn. So the Ed McGuinn Humanitarian Award is given by CityLax to a member of the greater lacrosse community who has demonstrated acts of unusual concern for the underserved, going outside of one's typical comfort zone to help someone or a group in need through mentoring, financial support, and general assistance, enabling the beneficiary to have a better chance at success in life. The actions taken by the award recipient will be consistent with the values of CityLax and those of Ed McGuinn, who passed away in April of 2019. So now I would like to introduce the winner of the first CityLax Ed McGuinn Humanitarian Award, and the award goes to Tommy McNamara, who's currently a senior on the University of Notre Dame men's lacrosse team. In late 2019, at a South Bend restaurant near his dorm, Tommy stopped a burglary by chasing down the teenage perpetrator a few blocks from the scene, recovered the money stolen from the restaurant patron, gave the teenager some of his own money, and offered to mentor the teenager anytime he wanted to call. Instinctively, Tommy saw an opportunity to help an underserved youth. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Tommy McNamara, the recipient of the first Ed McGuinn Humanitarian Award given by CityLax. So Tommy, what does it mean to be our first recipient of the Ed McGuinn Humanitarian Award?
Thanks, Eamon. The first thing that kind of comes to my mind when hearing about Ed's story and everything that he did for the CityLax community is I'm very humbled to even be associated with someone who was able to dedicate themselves so passionately and vehemently to what's really been a great cause, and it's something that's grown over the years. And, I think all of us in the lacrosse community, that's all we want really, after our playing days, is to kind of do our part in growing the sport. And I think, Ed really, truly did that within his New York community, and that's what we all want. And so, again, I'll say it, very humbled and honored to even be put in the conversation with someone like Ed and something that he was able to do. And so, very grateful and humble.
All right, Tommy, let's go back to November when you're eating a sandwich at the General Deli in South Bend. You had to think quickly. What are your memories of deciding to chase down the perpetrator and go get him after he grabbed the purse?
Yeah, coming up on a year on it, I've had a lot of opportunities to reflect on that day and everything that happened then. And, the first thing that really comes to mind is I just reacted to the situation. And so I was sitting there eating, a great General sandwich from the General Cafe in South Bend. It's an awesome spot. I see this kid kind of dart from the front, and he scooped up this lady's purse. And the next thing I know, I was out of my seat and then running after him. And in that moment, a million things are going through your head, what's going to come around the next turn. You just don't really know, but I just knew I had to chase him down. And as I was running, I knew he was a high school aged kid, and I knew that I was going to catch him. And so, I'm running. I'm like, how can I make this not a violent or aggressive situation? How can I stop him in a way that's going to leave us both kind of better than we started? And so I had the idea of just being like, hey, listen, look, and I was yelling at him. I was like, I'll give you $20. I'm yelling 20, I'll give you 20, I'll give you 20. Just stop. And so eventually we kind of made a turn around a building and he slowed down. And as I kind of approached him, I was looking at him and I was like, this kid's 14, 15 years old. And we got to speaking. And at that point, it was really the opportunity to just kind of talk, okay, we're here. Why did you take this lady's purse? Why are you in this circumstance? And I thought internally, I'm thinking, have you ever had to steal a purse? Have you ever had to be in that position where, you were thinking about taking someone else's money for your own circumstance. And so from there on, that's where it really got to. And I was, at least for a moment, trying to put myself in his shoes and try to understand his situation a little bit.
Quite the experience. We're happy to be now joined by Tommy's coach out at Notre Dame, Kevin Corrigan. And Kevin, when this happened, or excuse me, I should say coach, or you might make me run a few sprints next time I'm in South Bend. But Coach, when this happened, many of us read about the incident and we read about Tommy, but very few of us obviously know Tommy. What is it about Tommy McNamara that when you found out about what happened, you probably weren't all that surprised?
Thanks, Eamon. First of all, I really want to thank you. Thanks, CityLax. We have such great respect for CityLax. We've worked with them before when we've been in the New York City area. Learning about Ed McGuinn and his story, and the power of that example of the impact that one person can have on other people's lives, and we see that in the work that CityLax and Owls and the programs around the country do every single day. And I can't think of a better person to represent an organization like that or Ed McGuinn than Tommy McNamara.
Tommy, obviously you didn't do this for publicity. As you said, you had a million things going on in your mind and you had to think instinctively, but there was certainly exposure that followed. You were interviewed by the local TV stations in South Bend. Even your hometown paper, the Philadelphia Inquirer, wrote about you. How would you describe what it was like to receive so much recognition publicly for your actions?
It's a lot. It's like a lot of things that we do, playing lacrosse, going in and day out. You don't really do it for the kind of spotlight of everything or the show. It's just, Coach Corrigan put it eloquently. It's like we do what we do because that's what we do. And so like, it's real simple, but it was definitely a lot. But I think myself being in that situation, I don't think it would have gone any other way. And I think, a lot of guys within this team, if they were there in that situation, it would have gone in some similar ways. And, I think us within our team, we've committed ourselves to being involved within our community in a positive way and trying to make a positive impact. Whether that's kind of the little things that we preach every day through our, character, culture, community, what we're doing. And, in the other ways, and especially, this fall, I mean, Coach has made a strong commitment, and our seniors and upperclassmen have filled in and making sure, we're 100% registered for this election this fall. And so it's definitely a foundation of we're always trying to be active participants within our community and what's the next thing that we can do. And so it was definitely a lot. And, this one singular incident garnered some more attention than other things that we've been doing always. And so I was grateful for that because it let people see the type of community we have within ND Lacrosse. But, any great incident that we do could have garnered just as much attention for sure.
You led me to my next question. Certainly giving back to the community and service has become a benchmark of this program under Coach Corrigan as much as going to the NCAA tournament. You were a freshman when Notre Dame came east and did Notre Dame Day with CityLax. You guys have been involved, your whole career at Notre Dame with Owls Lacrosse in Chicago. So helping underserved young people pick up the sport of lacrosse is nothing new for you. What would you say to other college players about why that's important and what you and your teammates get out of that time you spend with young people?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's had a coach, from the first day you pick up lacrosse sick or the first day, my first sport was football and basketball. And I still remember, my first coaches who made it fun and interesting. And I look at them and I say, maybe I could be like them one day. And they're probably high school great athletes or college athletes who inspire. And everybody's got to have a coach to get to where they are. And I think all of us can reflect and think back to our first coaches, who they were and the values that they instilled in you and the way that they just made you think that, this is something that I want to do. And so it really is a responsibility, I think, that everybody has to give back to the game. And, thinking about how you spoke about Ed and his giving back, I think that's something that we've all been endowed with collectively, where, we've got to give back to the sport, and especially for college kids, nothing cooler than a third grader, fourth grader walking in, seeing a 6'2", big midi lacrosse player and saying, whoa, like maybe I can be like him one day. And so that's just something that you've got to take advantage of. Absolutely.
I thought I read you were barely 6 feet, 166. So you're 6'2", 250 now?
That's a freshman weight. I've been talking to Hambone for years trying to get that back. 6'1", 185 right now.
All right.
That's where I'm at.
You found chicken patty day.
I gotta give you Kyle Skinner's number. He can confirm it. That's our strength coach. He's got it.
Coach,
when he wants to feel 6'2", he stands next to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Coach Tommy talked about how you've made it a benchmark of this program, service within the community. I mentioned Owls. You've been working with them, for almost a decade. You brought your team to New York City. The people watching this obviously want to help the game grow and want to help give back to the game. What would your message be about how important it is to help the game grow in underserved areas and how they can go about doing it?
Yeah. Well, like a lot of things, Eamon, you got to think globally and act locally, right? I think to think globally about what we want our communities to be, to think globally about what we want our sport to be and what role the sport can play. But think locally and, just get involved in your community. Find the need within your community and get involved there, because every community has those opportunities. And so, we try to do that as we, whether it's here in South Bend or as you mentioned, Chicago with Owls, which is only a couple hours away, or when we're traveling, throughout the country, we look for those opportunities that we have, because we consider all that part of our lacrosse community, and we work from there. So, boy, I got to say one thing right now. I'm blown away by Tommy's eloquence and what he's saying about his feelings about this. There's nothing I can add to anything that he's saying right now, because he's so eloquent and expressing himself about his desire to serve, and just the way it's just a part of his life. It's not something big. It's not something he does. It's who he is. And I think that's a tremendous tribute to him.
Awesome. But Tommy, before we let you go, we do have to have some fun with you, because you'll be in your second year of playing the bagpipes and leading the Irish onto the field. First of all, how would you describe that adrenaline rush of being the first person out of the locker room to step on the field at Arlada Stadium while playing the bagpipes?
Well, I'm in third year. And
I lost track of how many years you've been in South Bend. So
no, it's being a fifth year guy. It's we're getting up there. But yeah, the bagpipes. First off, you just don't want to embarrass yourself is number one thing. So, I remember that first spring after winter practice when you're heading out of Loftus, I was always the last guy in the locker room, because it's the only place I could practice was in the locker room. It's too loud. I couldn't bring it back to my dorm. And so, but it was really a tremendous honor, and I couldn't have been prouder and more humbled to carry that tradition forward. And Will Young was a really close friend of mine, and he was my predecessor. And it's the combination of adrenaline and focus that you've got to kind of combine and harness. And you can't mess up. And I've had some moments where you get a couple squeaks in there, and I had actually one time in a last year early home game where a inner piece of the bagpipes fell out, and I couldn't make any noise. Not a single sound was coming out, and Timmy Phillips is right behind me. I guess it was 2 years ago. And I look behind him like nothing's coming out. And so all the guys just get their noise up, and it was all good. And so the good thing is you always got your teammates behind you, whether you sound well or you don't sound good on a particular day, you got your teammates behind you. And so it's an awesome responsibility to lead the guys out, and I couldn't have been happier and prouder to be doing it for the last couple of years. So.
And now it's not karaoke. We don't have it playing in the background, to make it sound good. He's out there on his own.
That's on his own. Teamwork coming into play there with Timmy Phillips helping you out. All right, well,
Yeah, exactly.
this is great. This is great stuff. Tommy, again, congratulations on being the recipient of the first Ed McGuinn Humanitarian Award, and really, really appreciate you and Coach Corrigan taking the time to join us, and we look forward to seeing you and your teammates in the Irish on the field again this spring. Tommy and Coach, thanks a lot for your time.